real savings.
Houston Discovery terminating the test dump at this time.
Discovery, we're ready for that. That the voice of pilot William Offeline reporting on the flash evaporator system. The crew on board now just midway through their afternoon activities. They've wrapped up the inspection tasks ahead of schedule, and the orbiter boom sensor system now stowed in its position at the payload sill. Likewise, the robotic arm is in its overnight position. The crew has a few ongoing tasks on board, including continued stowage of the cabin area. That's being done by mission specialist Robert Kerbeam, Christopher Fugelsang, Joan Higginbotham, and Thomas Ryder, who was a member of the Expedition 14 crew and is now traveling back to Earth with this STS-116 crew. Also on tap for the afternoon's activities include exercise sessions for a number of the crew members, but otherwise a light-duty afternoon. We will be covering the two deployments of two of the three satellites in the payload bay. Those are the MEPSI and the RAFT satellites, which will be coming up. Let's see, the MEPSI is at 1 hour 46 minutes from now, and the RAFT, which is the radar fence transponder, is slated for deployment 3 hours 22 minutes from now. The MEPSI is the Micro Electromechanical System-based PicoSat inspector, which is an experiment to demonstrate the use of coffee cup-sized low-power inspection satellites that can be sent out to observe large spacecraft. The RAFT satellite is a student program designed to give them experience with satellite engineering, and it consists of two small 5-inch cube satellites, which will also be launched by a spring from the payload bay. The crew is scheduled for sleep at 10:17 p.m. Central Time. That's just under 6 hours from now. On tap tomorrow will be preparations for their landing on Friday. They'll wake up at 6:17 a.m. Central Time, continue with the final cabin stowage. They'll also conduct a checkout of the flight control system, as well as a hot fire of the engines. They'll have one final satellite deploy, this time of the Andy, which is the atmospheric neutral density experiment that's also going to be deployed from the payload bay. And then the crew will participate in one final media interview. That would be with CNN, ABC News, and also a Challenger Center in Kenai, Alaska. That is scheduled for 1:57 p.m. Central Time. The rest of their day includes a procedures review of their deorbit timeline. That's slated for 2:32 p.m. Central Time. And then seats set up for for returning astronaut Thomas Ryder. And finally, the KU band antenna stowage for 7:17 p.m. Central Time. Their crew sleep tomorrow at 10:17 p.m.
Discovery Houston for attitude maneuver.
Go ahead.
Discovery will be ready for that attitude maneuver on the timeline on time, which is just about right now.
Okay, we'll do it.
And in another few minutes, I'll be calling you back for playback once we get good KU.
And we copy that.
That was voice of Commander Mark Polanski checking in with the ground control team, specifically astronaut Megan MacArthur, serving as the Capcom for this Orbit 2 team in the Mission Control Center. The Space Shuttle Discovery now making its way just southeast of Australia, the International Space Station now trailing 1,100 nautical miles behind, but both continuing to perform well as they're making their way over the southern Pacific Ocean. We're exactly an hour and a half away from the deploy of the first of two satellites that are expected to be jettisoned from the payload bay this afternoon. The first one is MEPSI, or the Micro-Electro-Mechanical System-Based PicoSat Inspector satellite. That's scheduled for deployment at 6:19 p.m. Central Time. That's an experiment to demonstrate the use of tiny coffee cup-sized low-power inspection satellites that can be sent out to observe larger satellites and spacecraft. The second satellite is RAFT, the Radar Fence Transponder, which is a U.S. Naval Academy Aerospace student project, and that's scheduled for deployment at 7:56 p.m. Central Time. Both of those will be covered here on NASA TV as we can get views from the payload bay.
Discovery Houston, we're ready for playback. It'll be about 3 minutes, and we'll call you when we've seen what we need on these three.
Roger that.
At the call of Megan MacArthur, requesting the onboard crew now to resume some playbacks from some of that earlier inspection activity. That again, a chance for the ground control team to have one final look at the critical panels of the wing leading edges as well as the nose cap before giving the final clearance for the vehicle. This is a chance for them to ensure there hasn't been any damage incurred to those surfaces during the on-orbit activities from micrometeoroid or orbital debris.
Discovery Houston for the playback.
Go ahead, Megan.
And we've got enough right here. We'd like to ask you to fast forward to 1847 and pause while we wait for a quick KU handover here.
1847 will be queued.
Thanks, Nick. Discovery Houston for the playback.
Go ahead, Houston.
Nick, we're ready for you to press play when you are. About 25 minutes, and we should have good KU throughout.
And you should see playback now.
Thanks, Nick. We see it.